Hey everyone, my name is Anne and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this beautiful ribbed sweater. I'll be making a small here, but sizes X small to 3XLs are also included in this tutorial and in the written pattern that I have linked down below. But here are the supplies you're going to be needing. So now we're going to get started on our pattern with our bodice. So over here I have my 5mm hook and my category 4 yarn. I'm going to first make a slip knot, and you can do this any way you would like. Once you have your slip knot, we're going to begin this pattern with a chain of 89. And to make a chain, you simply want to yarn over and pull through. Again, just yarning over and pulling through until you have a total of 89 chains. So once you have your chain beginning on row 1, we're going to skip this first chain, and inserting a hook into the second chain, we're going to work double crochets into each of these chains across. To work a double crochet, just yarn over, insert your hook into that second chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. We're going to do this again, just simply yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. And now just repeat doing these double crochets into each chain all the way across your row, and then I'll see you guys back once I have reached the end. So once you have reached the end with these double crochets, as you guys can see, we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work. Just going to chain 1, turn my work around. Now moving on to row 2, we are going to skip this first turning chain because it does not count as our first stitch, and inserting a hook into this first stitch, we are going to work back bar slip stitches into each stitch all the way across. To work a back bar slip stitch, just go ahead, insert your hook only into this back bar, yarn over, pull through both of those loops. Again, instead of going into both of these loops, you just want to go into this very back bar, yarn over, pull through everything. And now again, just repeat doing these back bars into each of these stitches until you reach the end of your row. So once you reach the end of your row with these back bar slip stitches, you can just chain 1 and turn your work. So for the next 2 rows, which is row 3 and row 4, you simply want to repeat this second row with these back bar slip stitches. So it is the same thing that we just did together. So just back bar slip stitch into each stitch and then chain 1, turn your work, and just do that for 2 more rows, and I'm going to see you guys back to work on row 5. So I am back here and I have 4 rows in total. So what we have done so far is worked a double crochet row and then 3 back bar slip stitch rows. Moving on to row 5, which is our last repeat row. Into this first stitch, we're going to be working back bar double crochets. To work a back bar double crochet, just yarn over, insert your hook only into this back bar, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. Doing this again, yarn over, insert your hook only into this back bar, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And now just continue to do these back bar double crochets into each stitch all the way down your row. So once you have reached the end of these back bar double crochet stitches, once you reach the end, you just want to chain one and turn your work. So to continue this pattern for our first section of our bodice, you want to repeat the last 4 rows, which is row 2 to row 5. Basically, all that is just working 3 back bar slip stitch rows and then 1 back bar double crochet rows. And you want to do that process until you have a total of 22 rows. So I'm just going to quickly work up my 22 rows and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. So I have just finished doing my 14 rows, repeating those last 4 rows. And now that we have 14 rows in total, we're going to be moving on to row 15, which is just going to be a little bit different. So depending on what size you're making, your next row is either going to be a back bar slip stitch row, just like me, or it's going to be a back bar double crochet row. But just following your pattern, either doing a back bar slip stitch row or a back bar double crochet row, you just want to follow the same pattern that you were doing before. So now you just want to work all the way down your row, and then we're going to chain 6 once we reach the end of this row, but I'm going to do that with you guys. So I'm going to finish up with these back bar slip stitches, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I have reached the end of my row. So once you have worked all the way down your row, either doing back bar slip stitches like me or back bar double crochets, to begin on the neck portion, we're now going to make a chain of 6. Once you have your chain of 6, you can go ahead, turn your work. Now beginning on our next row, and again, you just want to follow your pattern. So for me, my next row is going to be a back bar slip stitch row, the same thing that I was doing before. But if you have a back bar double crochet row, that's totally fine. But to do this next row, which is row 16, we're going to skip this first chain. Inserting into that second chain, we are going to do these back bar slip stitches into each chain and into each stitch all the way across our row until the end, and then chain 1, turn your work around. So I just finished working these back bar slip stitches into each stitch all the way across into each of these chains, these 5 chains that we made. So now to continue this neck portion for our back panel, we are just going to repeat the same stitch pattern that we were doing before, which is working 3 back bar slip stitch rows and then one back bar double crochet row. You just want to keep on repeating that same pattern until you have a total of 38 rows. So for example, my next row here is going to be a back bar double crochet row, but if you have a back bar slip stitch row, if for your size, that is totally fine. But I'm just going to continue that same pattern that we were doing before until I have 38 rows, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. So I have made it back here with my 38 rows. I ended up on the opposite side, as you guys can see with my hook. And this is where we did the chain of 6. So now we have made our neck portion coming along here. And once you have your 38 rows, the next row, we're basically going to be working these back bar slip stitches into each stitch all the way across your work until you have 5 stitches from the top remaining. And you probably guessed it, that's going to be even with the other side that we did. But if your next row is a back bar double crochet row, that is totally fine. Do your next row that is in the order that you're working in. That's going to depend on what size you're doing. But my next row is a back bar slip stitch row. So I'm going to work these stitches into each stitch across and again until I have 5 stitches from the top remaining. Then I'll chain 1 and turn my work. So I have just finished working these back bar slip stitches until I have 5 stitches at the end remaining. From here, we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work. So this is what your mock neck should be looking like so far. We have this section for our neck, and now we're going to be working the other shoulder strap, which is pretty much the same thing that we did over here. So now we just want to work 14 more rows, which then you should have a total of 15 rows for your second shoulder strap. So from here, you just want to continue on with your regular stitch pattern. For me, my next row is going to be a back bar slip stitch row. That may be different for you, but you would just want to continue this pattern until you have 14 more rows, which this was our first row, so you should have 15 rows in total. But yeah, I'm going to work up my 14 more rows, and then I'm going to see you guys back to cut and fasten off. So I have just made it back here, finishing up all of my rows for my bodice. I did go ahead, cut and fasten off once I reached the end of my work. Once you have one bodice all complete, you do want to repeat this process a second time. This is the same thing that I did, just like this. So now we have a front and back panel. Once we have our back and front panels, we're actually going to set this piece aside and we're going to get started on working the bottom border at the end. So let's set this piece aside and we're going to get started on the bottom border. So let's go ahead and move on with that step. So now we're going to be moving on to working the bottom border, and you do have to make 2 bottom borders, by the way. So I'm going to first make a slip knot. From here, we're going to begin this border with a chain of 19. Once you have your chain of 19, skipping this first chain and inserting our hook into the second chain, we're going to be working single crochets into each chain all the way across our row. Once you have reached the end of row 1, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn my work. Moving on to row 2, beginning into this first stitch, we're now going to be working back bar single crochets. So very similar, instead of working into both of these loops, we're only going to be working into this back loop and then work that single crochet. Again, just insert your hook only into this back loop, work that single crochet, and then just work these back bar single crochets into each stitch all the way down. Once you have reached the end, you can just go ahead, chain 1, turn your work. Now to continue this pattern for our bottom border, you simply want to repeat row 2 with these back bar single crochets until you have a total of 54 rows. So I'm just going to work up my 54 rows and I'm going to see you guys back once I'm all done. Now I have just finished working up my 54 rows with these back bar single crochet stitches. I did go ahead, cut and fasten off as usual, and I left a really long end because we're going to be using this for seaming, so why not? After you have completed working one border, you do want to repeat this a second time for both of our panels. I have already done this. So now that we have both of our borders, we're now going to move on to seaming everything all up in the assembly process. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So beginning on the seaming, I have my front and back panels, and I made sure that the good sides were facing each other. So therefore the wrong side should be facing us. So now looking at the bottom edge, I'm going to place my bottom border right on the bottom edge. And what we're going to do here is that we are going to whip stitch together our bottom border to our bodice. And to whip stitch, what you want to do is insert your tapestry needle. I'm going to go through this first stitch and then into the first stitch of the panel, and then just pull through. Doing this again, I'm going to go into the next 2 stitches and then pull through. Coming back around to the next 2 stitches, of course. Pulling through to secure, and to these next 2 stitches, oops, pulling through. And now you just want to continue on whip stitching as I'm showing you guys all the way until the end right here. You do want to do this for the other border as well with our other panel, just placing the bottom border on the edge and then just whip stitching it together just as we did for the first time. I'm going to work this up, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I have made it to the end of my work. Alrighty guys, so I am back here with my work. So I'm just going to show you guys what I did to seam up my bodice. So the last time we met, I did both of these bottom borders. And then once you have attached both of the bottom borders, what I did for the sides here is that starting 9 inches from the top, although you can start from the bottom if you would like, but starting from 9 inches up the side, I whip stitched all the way up the side until I came 7.5 inches for the top, and that 7.5 inches is going to create our armhole. And the last thing I also seamed was this side for our neck, so I did the shoulder strap, then I also did up the neck, as you guys can see. Once you have done that once, you of course want to repeat this process on the second side, starting 9 inches from the top, going all the way up until you reach 7.5 inches. That's your armhole, and then of course the shoulder strap and the neck as well. Once you have finished all of your seaming, you can flip your entire work backside out, so now that the good side is facing us, because we were seaming with the wrong side facing us. And that is actually the very end of our project. The last thing you will need to do is just weave in all of your loose ends, and that is it guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful, and I'm going to see you guys back next time. Bye! If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. If you bought this pattern, it would be super helpful if you left a positive review. But that's all guys, bye!